Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have Scott Chajarian from the Weekly Transit with me to discuss the astrology of May. Hi, Scott. Thanks for coming
Hey,
on.
you're welcome, Ryan. It's so great to be here. I'm excited to chat some astrology with you.
I know it seems like May itself is like another peak month where there's a lot happening. Uh,
Yes.
just because we did have Pluto recently move into Aquarius. So, like, everything that's moving into Taurus is immediately going to pick up a square to it and cause
Hmm.
some sort of tension.
Totally.
It feels like there's opportunities for growth and expansion and like a change of fortune, but it's like at what cost, or like what are you
Mm.
willing to sacrifice for that? Um,
Hmm.
just because of that Pluto influence.
Yes.
So I guess let's just jump right into it because May is a
Yeah.
relatively busy month.
Yes.
On May 1st, we have Mercury cazimi the sun, which means Mercury is conjunct the sun. And this is the indication of the halfway point of Mercury retrograde. So it's kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel. What are your feelings on the Mercury conjunction of the sun?
Well, first, I want you to educate me. Like, where does this word Kazemi come from? Like, I understand it means conjunction, but
Mhm.
what's the origin of this?
Oh, certainly. So when a planet is moving closer to the sun, it kind of has like three phases.
Uh-huh.
There's the under the beams when it gets about 15 degrees from the sun either side, and that's when it starts disappearing, and then it's combust as it's like 7 degrees to the sun,
Uh-huh.
and that's when it's really being burnt up and like it's getting closer. And Kazemi is the moment of the heart, in the heart of the sun, where it's the exact conjunction where it's said to be like in the chariot of the sun, so that
Hmm.
that phase of being burnt up and being cleansed, it's now like what's the best way of putting it? Now it's like it's recognized by the sun and kind of given the seal of approval so that it can
Oh,
continue on its journey. So the Kazemi itself is like that 0 degree
yeah.
conjunction where they're both at the same degree. So it's a very important point in a planet's cycle, because that's like the moment of rebirth where it's kind of knighted or like given some sort of honor by the sun, or like the main
Hmm.
big daddy god of the sky.
it's a it's a baptism in fire,
Yeah, exactly.
so to
That's it.
speak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
this lead up point of like disappearing and like really being burnt. And then the
Yeah.
Kazemi is like the baptism and the cleansing of the sun and like washing away the sins, if you want to call it like that.
I'm just so curious about the word though, because like I don't know the origin. I guess I could, look it up on the internet, like the origin of the word Kazemi. It's just such an interesting sounding word. I'm like, where does this word come from? So,
Yeah, I did learn the origins of it. I don't have it readily available because I'm not like fluid in like Greek or Latin. So it's like
okay,
hard
cool.
for me
Yeah.
to memorize all that. But that's the general feeling of a Kazemi. It's like,
Yes.
I like that, the moment of baptism. You can kind of think of it that
Yes.
way.
Yes. Baptism in fire. So, I mean, when Mercury is Kazemi the sun, I always love this aspect because it brings such clarity,
Mm, yeah.
mental clarity, mental clarity. And when you're thinking about Taurus, and thinking about the nature of Taurus, the bull, it's about the senses, the five physical senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. It's about what you value within those five physical senses, your likes and dislikes. So, hopefully this aspect really brings that mental clarity of your personal sense of values and your self-worth, and gives you the ability to articulate your self-worth and what you value to others.
Yeah, like you could even see it as like having a moment of clarity or a moment of
Mm-hmm.
sudden insight within that area of your life. Because Mercury's
Yes.
finally like, okay, I'm done like being in the flames of the sun.
Yes. Yes. But what is it? It's interesting because it's retrograde. So it's
Mm-hmm.
moving back across the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so maybe there's something to reflect upon your self-worth in the past, how you've been valuing yourself in the past, and maybe there's something when Mercury comes back across the sun later, there's some sort of new revelation
Mm-hmm.
that began here, where we're able to reflect upon how we've been treating ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, when a planet is retrograde, it's going back over degrees it's already been at. So we can think of it as going back over something that has already happened, or reliving some sort of past memory or past incident,
Yeah.
in that
Yes.
sense. So on that same day, May 1st, we have Pluto begins the retrograde. So
Mm.
it's like I'm done with Aquarius for now. Like I need to go back to Capricorn and kind of hash some stuff out. So like that we've
Yes.
only really had, I don't know, like a month and a half, 2 months
Uh-huh.
maybe of like Pluto and Aquarius. Um, so it's going to be moving back over degrees of Capricorn to 27 degrees realistically.
Yep.
And then in October, it's going to be stationing direct again and then going back through Aquarius. So,
Mm-hmm.
what I've kind of been saying about Pluto and Aquarius for this time around is kind of like a preview of what's to come.
Totally.
And what we might
Yes.
find with Pluto turning retrograde is it's going back over degrees of Capricorn and bringing up those past memories, like we were saying, or those past events. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty fascinating because I haven't really been paying close attention to like the Silicon Bank Valley, but I've been following along with it enough. And
Mm-hmm.
that was at the last degrees of Capricorn. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe something else comes back up when Pluto goes retrograde and moves back over that, you know?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I've been saying this for years leading up to this happening, that the last time Pluto was moving back and forth in and out of Capricorn was 0809.
Yeah, exactly.
Was so so Pluto or Capricorn rules real estate
Mm,
and the authority, and Pluto's the god of death. So of course when it moved into Capricorn and back into Sagittarius and into Capricorn, Capricorn, in 0809, that's when the whole lending, banking, real estate industry collapsed. And
yeah.
so, yeah, Silicon Valley Bank, I feel like that was the first sort of inkling of what's to come. I think more is going to unravel later this year when Pluto goes back into Capricorn and then moves forward through Capricorn and it gets back to Aquarius in January. But then, there's one other period in 2024 when Pluto's going to be in Capricorn as well. So over the next year and 7 months or so, it's I think it's going to be dicey with
Yeah.
finances and banks and real estate and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And like Pluto itself, it's so slow that it like slowly turns up like this corruption or this like excessive wealth and excessive power and stuff like that. And that's what we're
Mhm.
kind of seeing right now is like the corruption behind everything and how our systems aren't really working out for the better or the general public in a sense.
Exactly.
It's working out
Exactly.
for a select few. So,
Yes. And so it's basically bringing to death the authority of people who haven't been living in the sort of universal laws of like doing unto others as you would have them do unto you.
mhm,
And those people that are abusing their authority, like when you think of all the authority figures that fell down the mountain from '08 to now,
mhm.
through all of the different corruptions, whether it was like the Me Too movement or, any of these sorts of things, I think more and more are going to happen because Pluto moving into Aquarius is transforming the community. And in
Mhm.
order to transform the community, you have to transform the authority first.
Yeah.
And whatever authority doesn't get taken down the mountain during Pluto in Capricorn that is abusing their authority, they're going to come down during the Aquarius age as well, because both Aquarius and Capricorn are ruled by the authority. They're
Hmm.
ruled by Saturn. So like it's no coincidence. Like you go back and you look at the history of all the different revolutions and rebellions that occurred the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. I mean, there's dozens and dozens and dozens. Not all of them were successful for the rebels, but the two most famous ones are the American Revolution, which began when Pluto was in Capricorn, but ended when Pluto was in Aquarius, but then also the French Revolution that occurred when Pluto was in Aquarius.
Yeah, exactly. And even if we think of it like going yes, going back that far, but going back more recently, like Pluto in Leo was when like the United States really started changing their like behind the scenes structure. And I think of like that part of the United States where it's like vacations and fast food and like, and like people getting really wealthy and stuff like that off of,
Mm-hmm.
like benefiting from other people, like controlling other people. That's kind of coming crumbling down because we're in an opposition to that time frame.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
like, it's just the nature of the universe. It's like things come to their peak. And I feel like
Yep.
Pluto and Leo, and this is what I was saying in March on my podcast, Pluto and Leo was the peak, and now it's coming and crumbling down type of thing.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. So true. I love that, Raya.
Yeah. So let's move
Absolutely.
on so we don't like spend all day talking about Pluto and Aquarius. May, yeah, exactly.
Though we could.
I know
We
we could.
definitely could.
May 5th, we have the full moon in Scorpio. It's opposed Uranus
Mm.
and Taurus and Mercury retrograde. So I'd love to hear like your thoughts and feelings on the full moon in Scorpio.
Yes. Well, this is like a culmination that began back with the first new moon in Aries, which was followed by the full moon in Libra, and then the second new moon in Aries, and now the full moon in Scorpio. So, beginning with the new moon in Aries, that's about setting your intentions to love yourself, to be courageous, to be confident, and to be authentic. And in order to be self loving, courageous, confident, and authentic, you want to see how you are being reflected in your relationships. So that was followed, the first new moon in Aries was followed by the full moon in Libra, which was about releasing any relationships or relationship frequencies that are not living in the foundation of grace, peace, harmony, fairness. And they're not because you're being impeded in some way to your self love, your courage, your confidence, and your authenticity. So it was important during the full moon in Libra to release those relationship frequencies and then re reaffirm yourself in the second new moon in Aries to be self-loving, courageous, confident, and authentic. And now we have the full moon in Scorpio, and Scorpio comes after Libra. I think of Scorpio is like Libra times 10, times
Yeah.
100. It's like, Scorpio is the deepest, darkest, most passionate sign. Like the Libra energy is, I give you this because you're giving me that. There's a clear exchange. But once you get into that Scorpio energy, Scorpio is about karmic bonds, the bonds that you share with other people where you can't tell where you end and they begin. When they feel pain, you feel pain. When they feel joy, you feel joy. When they're angry at you, it keeps you up at night. These are the bonds that are forged through acts of intimacy, whether it be a verbal intimacy like a secret, a physical intimacy like sex, or a financial intimacy like sharing money.
Hmm.
And so once you're in these bonds, it's no longer I'm giving you this because you're giving me that. It's I'm giving you this because this is good for you. And what's good for you is good for us.
Yeah.
And so now we're in this deeper, very intense water where you're looking at yourself again and you're saying, am I am I am I loving myself? Am I courageous? Am I confident? Am I authentic in these karmic bonds? Do the ones that I'm bonded to, do they reflect my my self-love, my courage, my confidence, my authenticity? Do they encourage me to be authentic, to be confident, to love myself? And if not, then that is where the release needs to be. And maybe it's an entire relationship, a bonded relationship that needs to be severed, but it could also be simply a frequency, though it's not simple. If there's a frequency within the bond where you're like, you have to have you have to have this expression. You have to stop hiding from what you're feeling, and be open with your feelings to the ones that you're bonded to, and saying, what, I don't feel like I can be myself around you in these instances.
Mm-hmm.
And see where that lands, and hopefully you're able to release that tension and with your bonded partner, and feel lighter together and freer once the moon transits into Sagittarius, the next sign. And that's why it is the next sign, because once you're in that bonded relationship where you feel truly and utterly supported by the one you're bonded to, then you can be free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really think of with Uranus involved and
Totally.
the fact that the moon is said to be um, in exile or furthest away from its exaltation sign of Taurus in the sign of Scorpio. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
really stepping into that uncomfortable space that you're unfamiliar with and kind
Mm,
of stepping beyond the boundaries of what you have known to kind of
yeah.
progress forward. Because if we think of it, for how many thousands of years we thought Saturn was the limit of our solar system, and then Uranus comes around and it shatters the glass ceiling. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what this this full moon is doing. It's shattering the glass ceiling of your feeling comfortable in your body, feeling comfortable with your relationships, feeling comfortable with the circumstances that you have been given, and really stepping into some sort of unknown territory.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Uranus is about independence. It's about, and so hopefully you're able to embrace your independence within your karmic bonds based on your self-worth and what you value.
Mm-hmm.
That your values are being appreciated by those that you're bonded to, and through that appreciation, you feel independent in your self expression as opposed to codependent with the one that you're in relationship with.
Yeah. And realistically, with, Mercury retrograde being involved too, it's going to involve talking things out or like saying what's on
Mm-hmm.
your mind. Like being open and honest about what it is you need or what it is you want, things like that.
Yes, right on.
So that should be and I think I counted it's a high number of lunations this year that Uranus is involved in or making aspect to. So like this is a reoccurring theme, is like stepping out of your comfort zone and like going
Totally.
somewhere that is beyond the limits.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
Yeah. So the next transit we get to is May 7th. We have Venus moving into the sign of Cancer until June 6th. I have a lot to say about this, but I will keep it short. Um, I love Venus and
Tell
Cancer.
me, tell me.
I mean,
Yeah,
Venus and Cancer, it's like, it doesn't have any sort of dignity or like it's not a home sign or an exaltation sign, but it's a pleasant placement. Um,
mm-hmm.
you know, Venus itself is moving fast in the sky, so it's like able to express its significations more around May 7th. Um, you know, it's able to kind of it, deliver those Venusian archetypes or energies a little bit more prevalent than if it was moving slow or if it was retrograde or if it was like close to the sun. But interestingly enough, we get and immediately picks up a trine to Pluto retrograde or excuse me, not a trine. No, it picks up at the very last degrees, it picks up a whole sign trine to Pluto and Aquarius. So I feel like it's kind of
Mm,
like a foreshadowing to
mm,
what's to come. And it just reminds me of the story of Persephone being abducted by Hades, Pluto, Persephone being Venus, in some distant relation. So I feel like it's like a foreshadowing of Venus's retrograde in Leo in the summer,
mm,
where it's like
mhm,
she's getting ready to descend into the underworld, and she's kind of showing us what those themes are going to be present. Um, Almost like Venus is kind of, or excuse me, Pluto is kind of watching over Venus and getting ready to make his move to take her to the underworld. And when Venus disappears in the sky, um, but side note, that aside, Venus in Cancer itself is a lot about relationships and devotion. Um, you know, Cancer itself is a very devotional and nurturing sign. So
mm,
once again, we're in Taurus season, which is all about relationships. So there's like a heightened sense of, relationships following up with that full moon in Scorpio.
mm. Yes. I just think of, when I think of Cancer, I think of, it's ruled by the moon, and the moon represents the past. So when I think of Venus in Cancer, I think of past relationships. I think of the relationship origins. Where do your relationships
Mm.
stem from? You think of your present day relationships and think about whoever your friends, your lovers, your business partners are. How did you get to be with these people? Like, boil it back to your past, to your very first relationships, which were probably, your mother and father. And so from them to, your first relationships, maybe at school, childhood friends. How did these individuals sort of set the foundation for your present day relationships? And then thinking about all the planets in Taurus, the values, the origin of your values with regards to your relationships. So gaining some clarity there, that will hopefully allow you to nurture your relationships in a healthier way, and hopefully find yourself being nurtured in your relationships. I also think about the aspects that it will make with Saturn in Pisces and
Mm.
Neptune in Pisces. I feel like there's a lot of healing that can be done within the unconscious with regards to relationships and the origin of these relationships.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that sense of remembrance. If we think of it, it's like, so, the moon rules the sign Cancer. And what does the moon do? It reflects the light. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
mirror image. So there's this sense of um, absorbing, something that has already happened. The light is traveling to the moon, and it's reflecting it back. So there is this sense of looking backwards or looking to something that's like already been already happened. So I love that with that, really analyzing or reflecting on
Mm-hmm.
who you are in relationship in relation to the relationships you've had.
Yes. Yes.
A lot of relationship stuff there. But that's kind of like the theme for the month. It's, we have like a lot happening in Taurus, which is
Mm-hmm.
a Venus ruled sign.
Mm-hmm.
We have um we have Venus moving into Cancer, which is a wonderful placement, and she's getting closer and closer to Mars, which is like her lover in the sky. So there's this sense of like courting and chasing after, you
Totally.
know. Yeah.
I love it.
So let's move on to the next one, which is very exciting. On May 10th, we have Mercury after being Cazimi and under the beams and combust. It finally emerges into the sky. So this is when Mercury is actually visible. So if you go outside, early morning, you'll be able to see Mercury rising before the sun.
Oh, wow.
So
Cool.
typically, like if we think of it, um, in a sense, when you're like talking or working with the gods or the planets, it's think of it the way of it's hard to talk to someone that you can't see, but when a planet emerges, you can talk to it and communicate with it more because it's visible.
Hmm.
So Mercury has been not visible in the sky since about April 20th, give or take. So this is when Mercury's influence over how it delivers messages or how it like delivers its significations kind of ramps up a little bit. Maybe the way I see it with like the cycle with Mercury being retrograde, it's like maybe those things that have you had the clarity during the cazimi or the conjunction, you're able to kind of fully process or understand, or they're able to come out or be seen a little bit more rather than being internalized or private in that sense.
Yeah.
So that's, I
Yeah.
love to just tell people because it's like if you go outside and like work with the planets, it's like it's awe-inspiring to like go out and like see a planet rise over the horizon and actually like
Totally.
connect with it physically, you
It
know?
makes it more tangible. It
Yeah,
makes it more
exactly.
tangible. And I like to go out and too and see like, oh, so there's Mars. It's in the 10th house right now. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's a great way of putting it. It's like when a planet's visible in the sky, it's tangible. It's something that you can
yes.
actually like connect with in a sense.
Yes.
All right, so let's move on to May 15th. We have the Mercury retrograde ends, which I'm sure people will be jumping for joy.
It
It's at,
always cracks me up.
yeah. I mean, I'm fine with Mercury retrogrades. I actually like I feel more inspired and like mental clarity. Maybe it's because my Mercury is stationed in my birth chart. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't mind Mercury retrogrades. But Mercury ends its retrograde May 15th, 5 degrees of Taurus. So it's backed way far through Taurus.
I just always think it's funny because even though the retrogrades ended, Mercury is not like back
Yeah.
to its normal flow. So it's it still can be really crunchy in the days following the end of the retrograde.
Mm.
So yeah.
That's what I've found is right before Mercury stations retrograde, it's
Yep.
basically stopped in the sky, and that's when things go
Exactly.
haywire. And then when
Exactly.
Yeah, and then when Mercury stations direct, once again, it's stopped in the sky and things go haywire. The
Totally.
retrograde itself isn't bad; it's when it stops.
Exactly. It's only when it's yeah, for me it's like when it stopped because it doesn't move for like 7 days.
Hmm.
That's the hard time at the beginning and the end of the retrograde. During the retrograde, it's like you're back in a flow because it's moving a little bit. So,
Yeah, exactly. So May 15th, back up your hard drive, take extra time to go to work, like plan on delays.
exactly. Yes, yes. Be patient.
Yeah. So the next one we have May 16th, Jupiter into Aries, or excuse me, Jupiter into Taurus. Wonderful placement. Once again, it doesn't
Mm,
have any sort of like, it's not its home sign or its exaltation sign. It's just a wonderful place. And it will be here until May 25th, 2025. I feel like that's wrong. I should check my dates on that.
yeah, I
Disclaimer,
think it's
2024.
2024.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It
Um,
spends about a year in a sign.
yeah.
But yeah.
So once again,
It,
it picks up a square immediately to Pluto
yes,
at 0
yes.
degrees. Hey.
what does that mean?
I don't know. Um, I'm just, I have my educated guesses.
yeah, tell
Like,
me.
like we kind of spoke in the beginning, Pluto's that sense of wealth, that sense of power, that sense of like deep corrupt control. So I could see it as like a giant transfer of wealth. That's kind of what I've been noticing with like a Pluto Jupiter dynamic, especially in a house like Taurus that rules things like, material possessions
Mhm,
and tangible goods.
mhm,
Um, it could be that corruption within the financial system where there's like a further development on some sort of baking thing.
mhm,
Jupiter's expansion. So it could be expansion in a good or a bad way.
mhm.
Um, it could be, I'm not a financial advisor, let's just put this, or a financial astrologer. This is just my observation. Could be a big jump in inflation rates or interest rates, up or
Mm,
down. I could see it going more up than down.
yeah.
Um, and like I was kind of saying before, is just like a major transfer of wealth or assets or some sort of like um just something that involves that area, because we have Aquarius, which is like the sign that's associated with like civilization and like humanity and society, and we have Pluto there, which is like just corruption and like taking advantage of society and the people that are in it, type of thing.
Mm, yeah. There's some sort of shift going on financially and thinking about future outlook of financial markets. Um, it's yeah, some sort of shift.
Hmm.
I'm a little nervous about it, but whatever. Everything's gonna happen, and whatever
Yeah.
happens, happens. But um, yeah, there's some sort of big transformative shift happening. Maybe the markets go down a bunch. Um, I don't know. It's like Pluto is is that tiny little planet, and I just feel like it's gonna come up and bite the big planet Jupiter or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
Yeah. Well, once again, with that Mercury stationing, so Mercury's not moving in
yeah.
the sky, and Mercury rules over things like exchange and commerce. So we could see like a drastic like stop or decrease in markets this day because
Mm-hmm.
Mercury's not moving. In
Exactly.
Taurus, the sign of the bull, we think of bull market when it comes to finances.
Yes.
So May 15th, May 16th seems a little sketchy. And then 3 days later, we have a new moon in Taurus. So there's a lot in the middle of the month that kind of peaks and intensifies. Um, do you follow like the cryptocurrency stuff, or like I kind of do?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if like it could be related to crypto or it's something
Uh-huh.
like that, or taking over some sort of, it's not going to be easy to transfer over to a digital currency, but it could be some sort of news or outlook on that as well too.
It seems like crypto does better when there's planets in fire signs.
Okay.
And
We don't have
I
any
mean,
fire signs.
yeah, I mean there's the moon there
The
in
moon, yeah.
Aries, which is, but you've got four planets in the North Node in Taurus. I feel like when planets are in Earth signs, it kind of grounds the cryptocurrency. It
Hmm.
it draws you back to reality. The speculation becomes less, and people become more practical. And yeah, and then there's Mars aligning with Neptune as
Hmm.
well. And so, but I think maybe once Mars gets to Leo, then the crypto will jump up again, maybe,
Yeah.
and it's opposing Pluto and Aquarius. So who
Yeah.
knows? We'll see. It's going to be intense.
Yeah. So the little bit I do know about financial astrology is you typically track the moon, and the
Hmm.
moon's in a fire sign, but it's a Mars ruled fire sign. And where is Mars? It's in Cancer, where it's not happy,
Exactly.
connecting to
Exactly.
Neptune, which is like
It's going to be
completely confusing.
squaring. Yes, and it's going to be squaring the moon too.
Yeah,
So, and the
exactly.
moon is angry that Mars is in Cancer, and Mars is angry that the moon is in Aries. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it looks a little dicey
Yeah.
there.
That's
Yeah.
our little digression on that. Um,
Yeah.
but like on a like a more positive note, squares are dynamic, so it often produces results even though there's some sort of challenge that arises.
Hmm.
But you could even see like people like I think of Jupiter as like benefactors, like people here to help you, like people in power here to help you, or maybe like you have some wealthy friends or you have some people that are influential in your community and they're here to help you or offer some sort of support in a time of conflict or crisis. Like that's a more personal side note that I could see happening, but collectively I see the 15th, 16th through the 19th even as pretty chaotic.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, so let's move on to the new moon in Taurus. So after that
Yeah.
intense little digression.
Once we're in that new moon in Taurus, it's like reevaluating your self-worth. So whatever happens in the days leading up to the new moon in Taurus, people may be looking at money in a different way.
Yeah,
And so you're going to have to reevaluate your self worth, what you value, where am I spending my money? Is it really worth it for me to spend my money here? How am I making my money? Is this worth my time to be making my money this way? There could be some reevaluations occurring. It's also interesting because it's going to be aspecting Mars in
hmm,
Cancer and Neptune in Pisces. So that brings up issues from the past, from childhood, from your roots. It's like, oh, I have money problems. My parents had money problems. So, I'm blaming them. But then, bringing the Neptune into the equation is really showing yourself compassion and showing empathy to those who came before you. It might be something where it's like you're angry at, the politicians or, the bankers and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, that's why we're in this situation. But, ultimately, we all have to take responsibility for ourselves.
yeah,
And it begins with showing yourself compassion and being empathetic to others and having faith that even though things may be feeling chaotic right now, that everything is happening in your highest good. The universe is conspiring for you, not against you.
yeah,
And you just need to continue to work with the new energy in a new way. And just as the nights are dark, the days will be bright, and everything flows. Everything flows. So try not to be too much in despair.
yeah,
I'm talking to
exactly.
myself, by the way.
No, you're talking to me too. It's like, I mean, it's just, I think that everyone has really been struggling or having a hard time. I know talking to people, it's like with the price of food, with the price of gas, with the price of heating oil, it's like things are kind of scary right now. And it's like, how am I going to make ends meet? And Taurus is being able to provide the necessities to, live, to be able
Mm-hmm.
to move on and move forward. And I see with that Mars and Cancer, it's like really being protective over what it is you have already. And although Uranus isn't involved, it's co-present with the new moon. So it's like being innovative with what you have and
Mm-hmm.
being creative with your resources that are readily
Yes.
available to you. Like you're not gonna,
Yes.
I don't I see the new moon as like not necessarily a turning point, but like people having starting a new cycle or starting something where it's like there's a realization of like, okay, this is what I have readily available to me. So how am I going to use it to my best interest to thrive type of thing?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good notes.
yeah, I see
And
a
then,
lot of people. Oh, no, go ahead.
well, I was going to say also, it's like Mercury is aligning with Saturn
Hmm.
too. They're both at 6 degrees. This is probably the third time that Mercury
Yeah.
is aspecting Saturn and Taurus because of the retrograde.
Hmm.
And, it's about connecting your dreams to reality, your conscious mind to your unconscious mind, taking responsibility for what's going on in your unconscious and bringing it into reality. And yeah, yeah, so much happening here.
I know. I didn't it's like, I wrote out my overview and I was like, oh yeah, okay. And then like further on looking at it, I'm like, oh, okay, it's gonna be a really weird month. It's gonna feel like I feel like April itself and even March, like March was crazy with all the ingresses, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, I feel like this is like a peaking moment, especially with
Mm,
the new moon, with the moon that's exalted in the sign of Taurus. It's an honored guest. It's lifted up.
yes,
So it's
yes.
like we're up high right now.
Mm-hmm.
Which could make tensions high as well too.
Totally.
being an honored guest isn't always the best because the expectations for you to produce or be fun or be exciting is high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
Taurus is just, I feel like Taurus is just unhappy with Uranus cruising through. I mean, ever since Uranus moved in there in 2019, when you just think about all that's transpired
mhm,
since March of 2019, how many people have moved,
mhm,
and I mean, it's the planet of revolution in the fixed Earth sign. I mean,
yeah,
it created an earthquake to the material where people are like, I'm moving countries, I'm moving states or whatever because I don't feel safe where I am right now.
yeah.
So we've got another few years of dealing with this energy.
Yeah, exactly. And Taurus is all about security as well too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like Uranus is just such an unpredictable planet that it's like
Exactly.
it's really threatening to your sense of security, and that's what people have
Yes.
been feeling. Like,
Yes.
I mean, anyone anyone that anyone will talk to, even if you're just passing someone on the street, it seems like life has completely changed since 2019, where it's like whether it be jobs, like switching job, changing home, just changing, your daily dynamic or something like that. It's like everything has kind of, like I said, broke through the glass ceiling type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly.
So our next transit, we have May 20th. We have Mars is finally out of Cancer.
Uh-huh.
Um, Mars and Cancer, once again, like I've been saying this whole episode, it's a great placement, even though it's not like its home sign or anything. Mars and Leo itself seems fun. It seems like it's here for a good time. Um,
Hmm.
and it's in Leo until July 9th. And once again, immediately picks up an opposition to Pluto. So they're at polar
And
opposite.
squaring Jupiter.
Yeah, exactly. And still we're still going to have that Pluto we're still going to have that Pluto Jupiter square exact by degree. So it's like these three planets are just like butting heads and like fighting with each other. So
Yeah, I mean, this feels like the day of the revolution started,
yeah,
like
the shot heard around the world, or
yeah,
something
exactly.
like
Where
that.
people are like, "No, I'm not gonna do what you tell me to do or whatever." The god of war is in the sign that rules your heart,
Yeah,
and it's opposing the god of death in the sign that rules the community and the authority of the community. And then both of those are squaring the god of thunder in the sign that represents money.
yeah.
So there is some kind of fight happening here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like you think of Jupiter and like mythology, he was like the judge of the sky. He was like, is this fair and just?
Mm,
He was the guy that made the rules or the regulate like the rules and the not structures, but the laws that governed us as
mm,
humans. So it's like something's going to happen, the
mm-hmm.
power struggles, urges to
Yep.
conquer and defeat. Mars itself is like the warrior, so it's charging head first into battle. Um,
Mm,
in the sign of Leo, which is like sovereignty, so it's like defending one's sovereignty over
mm-hmm.
like corruption and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Um,
Yes.
it feels sharp and masculine in archetype form, not like sex form, and it just feels very big with that Jupiter energy. Jupiter is just like putting a magnifying glass to it. So
Yes.
on a personal level, you could see small situations get big around this
Mm-hmm.
time, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
like explosive fights or something like that. uh it could be small situations get big in a collective sense. I see it
Mm,
more of big situations get bigger type of thing on a collective sense.
mm. Yeah. This is the day that Donald Trump goes to prison or something. I mean, like it's
Oh, okay.
like, I
Oh,
don't know,
they're gonna
or
storm the
they're
jailhouse.
gonna storm the jailhouse and break him out. It's like something wild like that. is happening here. I don't know. It's gonna
Yeah,
be
or
nuts. So,
just like secrets come out. Pluto is the
yeah.
things that are hidden. It's like the things come
Hmm.
out that are secret that causes some sort of disturbance. Um,
Yes. When you
it's
think of all the secrets that were, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
no, I mean
Uh,
that's just kind of it.
when you think of all the secrets that came out when Pluto was in Capricorn, the secrets that came out about authority. Like, did anyone have any idea on the collective level about Bill Cosby?
Yeah, yeah.
Or like, I mean, are what? It's like it's unbelievable the things that
Mhm.
came out about certain people while Pluto was in Capricorn. And now when it transits through Aquarius, it's like secrets of society
Mm,
be revealed.
yeah.
Or
One
maybe secret societies are being revealed in some
secret
way.
societies, yep.
Yeah.
The Illuminati and the Freemasons, all their secrets
Hmm.
are going to be exposed.
Yes.
I just noticed too how close the nodes were. So my definition or my interpretation of the nodes is kind of like an amplification. So we have the north node as a dragon's head consuming. It's
Mm.
like an inquenchable hunger. And we have the
Mm.
south node as eliminating or a purging, like a
Mm.
constant purging. So tying that factor in could be a lot of like manic consuming and manic purging or manic releasing or uncovering.
Mm.
That's just my interpretation of the nodes is just kind of like a point of intensification
Mm.
in traditional astrology. That's kind of like the best way to describe it is, it just kind of amplifies and intensifies anything that it's associated with.
I
So
love it.
the nodes being 3 degrees away from this aspect, it
Yep.
may just blow the lid off of whatever's happening, like the pressure builds up and finally it
Yes.
comes out at both ends, which is, I mean, I saw May as like, okay, it's just another month, but now getting into it, it seems like there's a lot more that's going to be happening. And like a disclaimer is we might not see the results right away. I mean, you know how astrology works. It's the gears get moving and then slowly things become revealed. So it's like
Exactly.
this middle to May 20th time period is when the gears could really start getting moving with whatever is going to happen.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
the
Wow.
20th, I would just like, I'm not going to say hide or like don't go out into public, but I'm just going to say tread lightly, I guess is the best
Mm.
way to put it. Um,
Hmm.
it could also be not necessarily deception, but it's like this drive and determination to overcome people or kind of control people. So there might be some nefarious ways of communicating or the nefarious ways of getting what you want.
Hmm.
So it's it's an interesting day.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wow.
So should we get to a lighter aspect?
I love the dark ones. It's fun.
It's where all the good stuff is. It's where all the juicy stuff is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But May 21st, we have the sun moving into Gemini as it does
Hmm.
around this time period until June 19th. So it's a Mercury ruled sign. So like the sun takes on like more mercurial qualities. So it might be more like quick witted or quick minded. With Mercury in Taurus, which is like kind of a slower or more receptive sign, you might not notice it right away or feel that quick wit to it. Um, but what are your feelings on Sun and Gemini?
Well, I mean, I feel like once the sun moves into Gemini, whatever happened on May 20th, now all of a sudden all the information's coming out.
Mm,
Like to me, Gemini's the chatterbox. So
yeah.
with the sun in Gemini, and I mentioned Donald Trump, he's a Gemini, so he
Mm.
loves to talk. He loves to talk. And so there's going to be a lot of information that comes out during this Gemini season, and the fact that it's beginning here in sextile to Mars in Leo and trying to Pluto in Aquarius,
Mm.
some sort of action is being taken here some sort of transformation to the message, but maybe whatever is coming out is something you've never heard before. It's more open. It's maybe more honest in a way,
Hmm.
and people are just like sitting there with their jaws dropped at what they're receiving and hearing from the new information.
Yeah, exactly. So, the way I associate the sun with like mundane or like collective transits, it's the storyline. It's the constant like story or um thing that we're living under. So it's like, people like you were saying, like a development of or a chatterbox of or something like coming into your consciousness in that sense. I could see people getting a little bit like with that Mars energy in Leo, getting a little aggressive or defensive about what the facts, or like the
Mm-hmm.
details, things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of picking it apart almost like, no, this is the truth. I kind of think of Leo sometimes as like capital T truth, where it's kind of subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I could see people kind of getting a little bit defensive about what's capital T truth and what isn't,
Totally.
or what the facts are, what the details are, things like that. Because Gemini's like,
Yes.
the bits and pieces of something. It's the Twitter version of a news article.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
you know, the Twitter version,
Yes, the
or
bits and
like,
pieces. Yeah.
yeah, the closed
Bite
caption.
size.
Yeah, the closed
Yeah.
caption of like a TikTok video
Mm-hmm.
or something. Um,
Mm-hmm.
well, I didn't even talk about the whole TikTok thing. I haven't really been following that, but Sun and Gemini could kind of play into that with Gemini being related to things like technology and stuff like that, and communication and social media, stuff like that. So happy birthday to my Geminis.
Yes. Yes. We love you.
They'll have an interesting lead up. So the last one we have, May 31st, we have Mercury finally exits its retrograde shadow at 15 degrees.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that means that it's moving into degrees that it hasn't been at this time around in Taurus. Um,
Yes.
what do you usually notice like when Mercury itself exits the shadow?
That's when I usually feel the relief, is when once it's left the shadow, then I feel like, okay, now I'm cruising again. Now I'm moving. I don't feel the clunkiness. I don't feel the clumsiness, the weighed down energy of a slow moving Mercury. Now it's back to moving 1 to 2 degrees a day.
Yeah.
And I think once we get to May 31st, we've gotten all the new information and we're able to move forward in a way that is more receptive to the new energy.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I looking also at Venus is going to be trine with Neptune, and
Yep.
so I think there's a lot of healing happening here in relationships. We've gone through the Sun squaring Saturn, which was 4 days earlier, which may have been a difficult period, but now we've seen our way to the other side, and hopefully things are more on the up and up at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, you could really see like as far as like news or like information around this time period, the 31st, is when it really starts flowing. So like
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that uh hypothetically, like if something comes out and like we're waiting on bated breath through the month to like really understand the story or get the full details, the 31st is when like things finally, come to us where it's like, okay, this is the story and this is how it went, type of thing. um
Yeah.
that's just kind of like a feeling. And but when we go into the 31st, it's like Mercury is getting closer and closer to Uranus for a
Mm-hmm.
conjunction. So it's like next month, what's going to happen with that? you know,
There's
how,
going to be some kind of revolutionary information that comes out where people are going to go like, what? No, that I don't
yeah,
believe, something,
exactly. It's
some
gonna,
sort of mental shock.
yeah, exactly. Some sort of shocking something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, luckily it seems like May itself is it's not off to a rocky start, but it gets rocky in the middle and it
Mm-hmm.
gets a little
Yep.
bit dicey. And but then by the 31st, things seem to kind of like settle out. I feel like we have a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more balance in the sky towards the
Yep.
end of the month with like not so many earth signs place. I mean, we have stellium and Taurus throughout most of the month. Not so many earth and water sign placements. And it's like we get some fire, we get some air mixed in. So there's a
Yep.
little bit more balance and it doesn't seem as lopsided, um,
Mm-hmm.
which always makes me feel better.
Yes. Yes. Better to have the balance. I mean, there's been a lot, everything's been kind of clustered
Mm,
in like in basically three signs,
yeah.
like Taurus, Aries, and Pisces is like where everything has been leading up to this month. And then once the sun moves into Gemini, then it's like, okay, now there's
Yeah.
only three planets in Taurus in the North Node, but Mercury's going to be out of there soon. And yeah, so balance us out, please. It's
Yeah.
been intense.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we have for this month. I mean, I went into this month thinking that it wasn't going to be like super intense, and then further looking at it, and I feel like that's going to kind of be the theme for a lot of people is like going into the month, they're not going to think it's intense, and then further into it or looking at it, it's going to feel like a peaking moment.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. Exactly.
so that's what we got for this episode. Once again, Scott, thank you for coming on.
You're
Um,
welcome.
if you guys like Scott, I will have all of his links in the show notes. Once again, thank you for listening and thanks, Scott, for coming on.
You're welcome, Raya. Thanks for having me. This has been so much fun.
Oh, thank you. You too.